Hello.
How are you?
Setting up.
Hello. Nothing here.
I'll be right back. How are you doing, Miss Sindel?
I'm fine, John. How are you?
Good. Trying to catch
Hello.
up.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Oh, there's Roberto.
Hello, John.
Hola, y Roberto, ¿cómo estás?
¿Cómo anda usted ahí? ¿Todo bien?
Bien, bien. Tú has llegado.
Sí.
¿Dónde está la música? Cuando llega la música.
Ah, no, es más de mis hijos.
Como trombones, como horns, cosas así. ¿Y cómo está? Wow, ¿está en su casa?
Sí, en mi casa, sí, sí.
Ok, en pintura. ¿Qué
Respetando-
pintura allá?
Respetando la cuarentena.
Ah, sí, en la casa. ¿No va al hospital?
Sí, sí, más después de esta charla voy al hospital.
Oh, ok. ¿Está pacientes neurosurgería o de todo?
Mañana estamos operando tumores y gente muy dolorida únicamente.
Emergencia o electivo?
Sí, emergencias o tumores cerebrales que no pueden esperar, estamos operando.
Oh, ok. Ok, ¿y cómo está los otros argentinos? No habla con, ¿cómo se dice? Herman, hay muchos. Marcos, Herman. Con tiempo va a tener más charlas con ellos.
Sí, bueno, cómo no.
Sí, vamos a empezar otra vez, porque ahora, Roberto, es más popular, más fácil.
Claro.
Antes necesito explicar qué es Zoom, qué es una plataforma. Ahora no, todo el mundo conoce.
Sí, sí, es bueno.
Es más fácil para mí.
Y en algún momento los congresos van a ser ya virtuales, ¿no?
Sí, tenemos, cada semana tenemos latino, domingo,
Claro.
como tú has hecho, y congresos varios. Estamos televisando Neurosurgery Pediátrica de Ciudad de México en septiembre, pero yo creo que todo virtual ahora. Yo creo, no sé.
Sí, yo creo que ya esos grandes congresos que iban 3.000 neurocirujanos, me parece que ya no van a volver, ¿eh?
Sí, well, yo creo que Griselda quiere hacer virtual este año porque es difícil para arreglar su viaje si no sabes qué va a pasar en septiembre. Pero yo voy a decir a ellos, mira, no va a pasar en persona septiembre.
No, no va a pasar, no.
No.
A menos que se encuentre una vacuna rápido. Esto si no lo para una vacuna no lo va a parar nada. Vamos, no sé qué va a pasar.
Sí, Italia es mejorando. Yo hablo con un neurocirujano hoy, esta mañana. Él dice que está usando esta medicina. Él dice que seguramente sirve. Él dice. Pero no hay pruebas, pero la caso que él ha visto va bien. Chloroquine y erythromycin. Él dice que seguramente todos los pacientes se da.
Y va a pasar como con el SIDA, no se va a curar, pero se va a controlar la enfermedad, supongo. Esperemos que encuentren una forma de tratamiento que la controle, ¿no?
Sí. Okay.
Como con el VIH.
Ok, sí, yo creo que UHA va a hacer más congresos. Porque yo voy a decir, hay para decir a él, mira, es el tiempo perfecto para una persona como él,
Claro.
para llegar a los jóvenes, porque los jóvenes muchos están en la casa o pueden escuchar. Es una oportunidad perfecta.
Y para que él tampoco se tenga que mover mucho.
Sí.
Bueno, ¿cómo estamos? ¿Estamos en hora?
Abalash, ¿cómo estás? How you doing, Abalash?
Good morning, John. How are you?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm glad to finally catch up.
Yeah. This is Roberto Herrera. He's going to speak today. He's a neurosurgeon from Argentina.
Thank you, Dr. Herrera. Looking forward to it.
Okay. Well, yeah, Ike wants to talk to you. He'll talk to you after, okay?
Absolutely. And John, by the way, fantastic job keeping this going. Really do appreciate all the work you're putting in.
Well, it's fun. Yeah, I mean, it really is great to talk to people all over the place, and they appreciate it. So
Yeah.
that makes it worth it. But how's it going in Tampa?
It's
Same as Miami, probably.
I think when you live in Florida, you really can't complain too much because the weather is really beautiful.
Oh yeah.
So, at least,
Yeah. I know. When I show my background, so let me show you here. And people kind of they really like it. It's not professional, but I mean, when you put that background on, people go, oh.
That's your trademark background.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave it on. What the heck? There's a tool. Yeah, have you met a tool before? You know him, Roberto, right?
Yeah.
I don't think there is a single neurosurgeon that does not know about Dr. Goel. So
Oh, he's every day he's teaching. Every day he likes it.
yeah,
He likes the platform, and I hope you get to use it too. I'll show you. You know, we've had conferences. We put together a conference on the pituitary gland in 1 week. Boom, slapped it together.
wow.
And that's the beauty. You can arrange things fast. You don't have to, you know, go months ahead of time. So if you have any ideas of anything you want to do, just let me know.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of things we can share, especially with the enthusiasm of many of the participants. It's just a matter of time before something organic will come up that will benefit and change the way that we do things every day. So I'm very, very, that's why I'm here. So
Yeah, well, this is going to be integral to education now, video. It definitely, now that I think that people have seen it, this really was a stimulus. This corona was forced people to look at it. So, because I can see, and you know, people, there's much neurosurgeons are coming to me now and saying, I want to do a presentation. I said, great. That wasn't like that before.
that's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, if you haven't, we'll get together and I'll show you the platform, show you how it was pretty simple, but it helps to know a little bit. Do you know Griselda? Griselda, pediatric neurosurgeon from Mexico City. She's the president of the.
Yes, we connected recently. I believe on LinkedIn, but I've never met her personally.
Yeah, you'll get to meet her. She speaks English. She's put together a conference in September. So well, hey, good morning, Marco.
Hi guys, hi John.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm fine enough.
Yeah.
It was a night shift, very peaceful.
Well, it was so good to hear that things are getting better in Italy. It's so good to hear.
Yeah, it seems so. Let's finger crossed and hope everything's gonna right.
Yeah, that's great. So, Roberto, you ready?
Yes, yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Let me.
Share
Let me introduce you. Let me start first. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Good morning. This is Dr. John Bennett, broadcasting from Miami Beach, home of Neurosurgical TV. Today, we have a great pleasure of welcoming Roberto Herrera, a friend for a couple of years now. He does webcasts in Spanish and English. We've been with him to, I think, in Pakistan. I don't know if he came to Yemen, but he goes all over the place to go to conferences, and we're really glad that he agreed to talk to us today. Let me, well, why don't we just go right ahead, Roberto, and let me get the mute here. Sometimes it's tough to handle a mute thing. Yeah, but Roberto, why don't we just go ahead and introduce yourself and on to your presentation, and thank you.
Okay, share screen.
Yeah, sure. There you go.
Okay, can you see?
Yeah, perfecto.
Okay.
Can you say where you practice and everything, Roberto?
Okay. I ready, Sean. Start my conference.
Okay.
Okay. Good morning in my country. Now it is 8:30 in the morning. It's a pleasure for me. Thank you, John. Thank you, my good friend Ipe Cherian for inviting me to this conference to stay together with the other side, neurosurgeon from the other side of the world. I'm going to talk about the main goals in brain glioma surgery. I think neurosurgeons have to agree, respect what we are going to do when we are going to operate glioma. With different tools, it is not important, but the important is the goal. How we are going to operate the glioma. And what do the guides say about the treatment, for example, in high-grade gliomas? The guides say that we have to do maximal safe resection feasible. And it is the same in low-grade glioma, maximal safe resection feasible in each patient that we are going to operate. But when I talk about this, many neurosurgeons, some people said, I can't remove a glioma completely without using intraoperative MRI, without intraoperative MRI. And it is false. It is false. What do the bibliographies tell us about this? What the bibliographies said? For example, Professor Raymond Sawaya reviewed the literature, the bibliography, in 10 years' time. And he saw that over the past decade, in some series of glioma surgery, the number of gross total resection has been limited to a mere 6.2 or 12% of the total. That means that 90% of that surgery were only partial resection, no complete resection of the tumor. And a lot of research after that Sawaya works have presented similar results, 92% of remnant of tumor when the surgeon thought that he had finished the operation. It's very important this, because we are not doing gross total resection in most of the surgeries that we are doing. But I'm going to show the example of the best neurosurgeon of the century, Professor Jasagi. If you see the book, the last book, Microneurosurgery in 4 volumes, 1994, of Professor Jasagi, you could see this huge tumor here, and with the small, excellent operation, but with a few of tumor here, few of tumor remnant, even in Professor Jasaki's surgery. Nobody of one are able to remove completely a tumor. That's why Professor, without the technology, without the new technology and that we can use at this moment. That's why Professor Jasaki in this book said that he was convinced that we, in the near future, we will have modern operating room, computerized room with different technology into the operating room. And this is my big question. Is it the real result in the treatment of glioma? All of the patients will be dead and before 10 years after we operated them. Or these values are based on incomplete surgical resection? This is my question. We have operated more than 500 patients with glioma in our apartment. We use intraoperative MRI plus one or more the other tools: neuronavigation, brain mapping, neurophysiological monitoring, intraoperative ultrasonography, awake surgery. We use all these tools, but the important is agree with the goal of our surgery. Remove the tumor completely, gross total resection or partial resection, or biopsy. Some neurosurgeons argue in favor of the biopsy. The tools are important, are very important. I think if you have intraoperative MRI, you have advantages. But if you don't have intraoperative MRI, you have to do the best that you can do for this patient. Using the other tools, intraoperative ultrasonography is very useful too. Peter Black in Boston, in the Brigham and Women's Hospital, was the first neurosurgeon who used intraoperative MRI. The second country was Germany, then Finland, then Canada, and the fifth was Argentina in our apartment. This is our operating room. We use this open magnet, 0.23 Tesla. You are invited to know our operating room when you want. This is during a check, intraoperative checking. And I'm going to show you examples, because many people said to me, oh, this is, everybody have isolated cases, but I'm going to show you several cases, because there are not isolated cases. I'm going to show you huge gliomas, huge high-grade glioma. And how we use intraoperative MRI. For example, this tumor, this is a sample tumor. We can recognize this tumor when you open high-grade glioma. We put the patient in surgical position. This is here you can see the magnet, the patient with surgical fields, the magnet is dressed like an assistant. Do the craniectomy. Here we are operating very close to the magnet because it is a low field magnet, and we remove the tumor in the same way that we do every day. We remove the tumor, but in this moment, when the things look the same but are not the same here, when we don't know if you are leaving tumor remnant here, we put some marks on the bottom of the cavity, and we check the surgical step with an intraoperative MRI. We can repeat this many times, as we need to do it, and go on with the surgery, removing tumor with ultrasonic aspirator, until that the final moment in which we can see the marks that we put on the bottom of the cavity. Here is the mark here, and no more the tumor. And this is the patient. This is the way, this is the system of the best way to use intraoperative guide images. Another case, frontal and temporal lobe, bad tumor, and here you can see, this is, here you can see the scalp is open here. This MRI was taken before approach, before attack the tumor. Here, the second intraoperative MRI control, we remove partially the tumor, more resection, bigger resection, excuse me, and below, no more tumor in intraoperative MRI. And you can see the same in sagittal sequences, the same here. We going to remove completely like this the tumor, and it is the same in axial plane. And here you can see we remove a big, completely frontal lobe, partially temporal lobe, and some piece of insula too. But this is the patient. He was a chess player, and he was with very good outcome more than 3 years after that surgery. This is not a good option. Watch and wait is not a good option in never kind of glioma. Here you can see this sample glioma. Perhaps at this moment it was low-grade glioma, 2003, but 2007 this tumor is bigger. And here it took contrast, enhanced with contrast, and it is a high-grade glioma. It is impossible to help this patient, but we decided to operate October 2008, this huge tumor here, high-grade glioma, because the patient was a young man, a big craniotomy, and we decided to remove this tumor. But this is the brain surface. I can see where the pathology is, where the tumor begins or ends. Where is the tumor here? This is intraoperative MRI. We can see good resection. This is surgical field. And this is MRI 3.5 years after surgery with no tumor. Very good outcome of the patient, only with partial frontal lobe, temporal lobe resection, and insular resection. But with this MRI 3.5 years after the operation is with a patient with very good outcome and with no tumor. This is impressive. This is almost impossible to remove this tumor, but we decided to operate it, anaplastic oligodendroastrocytoma, and this is the MRI after surgery plus radiotherapy plus chemotherapy. But this is the patient immediately post-operative. You can see the stitches on the scalp here, and this is the patient. 3 years and 5 months post-operative survival. This is another concept. I think the tumor has no neurological function. When you do in functional MRI, you can see the functional areas around the tumor, but never in the tumor. I think the tumor is not an eloquent area. We can see when we use brain mapping, the stitches, the marks around the tumor, never in the tumor, inside the tumor, never. Another huge tumor, impossible to remove, to think in remove this tumor. You can see here this area, posterior area of the tumor. No problem with this, but what happened with this area of the tumor? But the patient was comatose, but without paresthesia, without hemiplegia, comatose with this, in comatose status with this tumor. We decided, you can see a huge tumor here with contrast enhanced in the middle. This is the surgical field. And this is the patient in the same years after surgery with this resection, nucleus caudado, this big resection. This is the patient right after surgery, 6 months later. And 3 years after surgery with this MRI, you can see all the images and no tumor. And the same coronal and sagittal images. And here you can see the patient, very good condition, more than 3 years, completely good life with babies in his home, 32 years old, 3 years and 9 months, she died 3 years and 9 months after surgery, but he was alive 3 years in very good condition, neurological condition. Corpus callosum, high-grade glioma. We are operating this kind of tumor because we thought that when we operate in epilepsy surgery, we cut corpus callosum, anterior, posterior, complete section of the corpus callosum. Why don't remove? If we can cut, why we can't remove corpus callosum? And in this, we operated several cases with this kind of gliomas, always when only one optic thalamo was affected. Now, when the tumor is extended to the both optic thalamus or subthalamus or hypothalamus. But in this tumor, we decided to remove it. We did a good resection. This is intraoperative MRI. This is the resection of the tumor. And this patient was alive for more than 3 years in very good condition. But this is, we can achieve more than this in high-grade glioma. We can, I think the next wounds will be what the oncologists or radiotherapeutics will be able to do in the future. More than this, it is impossible from our side as neurosurgeons. Neurophysiological monitoring is very important. And it is very important to the team. It is so important, the team, like the technology. It is very important to have a trained team of neurosurgeon, radiologists, anesthesiologists, and you can use all the tools that you need to remove the glioma. But in high-grade glioma, we argue with remove completely all the tumor that we be able to remove. This was an exceptional case. In this tumor, we thought that it was a low-grade glioma, but this area was a GBM, high-grade glioma. We decided to remove it using by mapping tool. We localize central sulcus. We localize exactly the tumor here and here. We comprove. We put some vitamin E pills to certify the location of the tumor here. And this is intraoperative MRI. The scalp is open here, and we remove completely this tumor. This is the surgical bed before and after the resection. And this is the patient in the postoperative, and this is the patient with GBM, 7 years free of tumor after surgery. But it is an exceptional case. We presented this surgery in World Federation Neurosurgical meeting in 2013. What about the goals in low-grade glioma? I think our effort would be in this direction. In low-grade glioma, we have to put the best of to remove completely low-grade glioma, because it is possible that in some cases a good surgery could be the cure of the patient. What the bibliography says about this? Most of the patients with incomplete low-grade glioma removal die within the first 5 or 7 years after surgery from recurrence or malignant transformation of the tumor. Low-grade glioma are like a little tiger in the living room in your home. If you leave him grow up, he will become a dangerous monster, and finally he will kill our patients. We have to remove it when you can do it. And the guidelines say the same: maximal and safe resection possible as soon as better. This is a low-grade glioma, premotor area, left hemisphere. Here you can see the tumor. This is the MRI before the surgery. We localize the tumor. Here you can see in flare and T1, T2. This is the surgical position. You can use neuronavigation to localize the tumor, to program the craniotomy. This is before. Here we are operating. The magnet is close to the surgical tail. Craniotomy, usual craniotomy. Some marks to determine the boundaries, the limits of the tumor. Intraoperative MRI, first control. This is the position of the patient inside the magnet, only moving the surgical tail 1 meter. This is the patient with the coils. This is the view from the control room. This is operating room. And here you can see the marks, the tumor. The process is the same. Here you can see the tumor, the same, the craniotomy, the same. And here we put some pills here, and we can see a little small remnant of tumor here. We remove it. Another check, and until we can see these images with complete resection of the tumor, in coronal and sagittal, complete resection of the tumor. Here we have another difference. In glioma surgery is to operate away patient. I disagree with this. I think it is false. Why? For example, in this book, this Greenberg book is a book that many young neurosurgeons read frequently. And in the chapter of low-grade glioma, you can see intraoperative mapping and away craniotomy is recommended as a standard for glioma surgery. I disagree with this. But many others have the same opinion. And Professor Dufault said, not image-guided resection. Why? If you use MRI before and after, why no intraoperative? Which is the reason? I disagree too with this, for example, no microscope. But when they show the results, they put MRI with tumor, MRI without tumor. Why no show this intraoperative into the operating room to avoid surprises? I disagree. Respect these mapping techniques are the only solution. We have to use different tools, and we have to agree with the goal of the surgery, that it is remove. It is do the gross total resection using the best tool that you have in your hands. And I think that in the near future could be that the intraoperative MRI would be the gold standard in every operating room around the world to remove a tumor, a glioma, and the neurosurgeon can left the operating room with this intraoperative MRI and ensure that he removed this tumor. Surgery with a white patient is an excellent tool too, but it cannot be considered the gold standard in glioma surgery because many patients cannot be operated away. And by the other way, it does not allow us to know if we remove the tumor completely or we left a remnant behind. And you cannot operate away more than 50% of the patient with glioma. We cannot operate this list of patients, infants, children, teenagers, very early patients with excess in weight, with mental disorders, very nervous, anxious, in prone position. You can't operate away patient in prone position, midline tumors. When you put all of these cases together, you have more than 50% of the patients that you can't operate awake. You can't tell us about the best, if the only solution is operate away. I disagree with this. For example, this case, we operate, it was pilocytic astrocytoma in the midline. I can't operate this patient away. And yes, I can use neuronavigation, I can use intraoperative MRI. And when we use neuronavigation, we can actualize the images with the navigation in this moment, in that moment, in real time. I can recalibrate the navigation with these actual images to prevent the brain shift. And this is the patient, and this is post-operative with very good resection, the patient in excellent outcome. This case, this was a little girl, 2 years old baby. She was operated by a great neurosurgeon in Europe from this tumor when she was 2 years old. But 6 months later, 6 months after this surgery, we received the girl, the baby, with this MRI, with this remotion of the central area of the tumor, but with this difficult tumor. Here you can see it's not a good tumor with this area here, in central area. We decided to remove it. And here you can see, this is the girl 10 days post-operative during the winter, summer with her family. This is the patient 3 years post-operative. Here, the patient starting kindergarten, 6 years after surgery, 6 years, 7 years post-operative with this huge cavity. But this is the patient, 14 years, very, very nice girl. Here you can see 2017 MRI, complete resection, no more tumor, no regrowth of the tumor. This is a patient in Disneyland, 11 years free of tumor. And what would have happened with this resection? And against this complete gross total resection, it's not the same. The result, the follow-up, of the patient when we do partial resection in low-grade glioma. respect than when we have the possibility to remove completely this tumor. The other some neurosurgeons said those total resection doesn't matter, because all the patient die no matter what we do. It's not useful to remove completely. It's not good. Okay, it is false. This is one of our first patient operated in July 2000. He was operated in another department, but he another department. This is mine with peer and assistant on that time. And the patient was operated in another department, and he came to me with this tumor remnant here. And his mother is neurosurgeon, and she decided, please, doctor, I want you remove completely this. I need you remove this tumor. We use intraoperative MRI. One of our, I think it was our second case on July 2000. And this is the MRI postoperative control with no tumor, no more tumor. 10 years postoperative. This is the baby, the boy. He was 9 years old when we operated him. And this is the guy we use, and this is the area of this remnant was. And this is the patient, 19 years after surgery. He is a man with his family. And this is my question. A good surgery could be the cure in these patients. The results that we know are based in incomplete resection. What happens if we start to operate and remove completely the tumors in advance? This case, for example, it is impossible that a way surgery can give me some help. It is a tumor localized in basal area of temporal lobe on the right. I can map nothing in this area, no motor function, no language function. But yes, the images, the intraoperative MRI is a good guide. And this is the patient postoperative years after surgery. This is a patient completely normal. This is cured. I don't know if she is cured, but she is 13 years after surgery and without tumor. Low-grade glioma was operated 2006. No isolated cases. The most of our patients has these results. 2006, 2019, no more tumor. This is the patient, excellent outcome, no neurological dysfunction. This was a particular case in a patient with two tumors, two low-grade gliomas, oligodendroglioma. One of them in right temporal lobe, the other in left temporal parietal lobe. We decided to remove in the first time the temporal lobe tumor, and then we removed the parietal tumor using electrocortical stimulation because the tumor was close to the motor area. Cortical stimulation. This is here is the tumor. This is motor area. Okay, this is the patient 7 years postoperative. He with his first son. This is the postoperative MRI. No tumor here. No tumor here. This is the patient 10 years postoperative. This is the patient 12 years postoperative, and his MRI. This 14 years postoperative with this MRI with no tumor here, no tumor here, no tumor. And this is the patient for the last picture he sent to me with no tumor in temporal lobe, no tumor in parietal lobe. Another case, frontal oligodendroglioma. We detected this remnant with intraoperative MRI, remove it, and this is postoperative MRI, the patient normal life and working 12 years postoperative. In Broca area tumor, important tumor here, we decide to remove it, no airway surgery, only guided by images, functional MRI before surgery, of course, the test, psychological test before surgery, but no in the surgery, during the surgery. This is the surgical field and the MRI, complete resection of the tumor.
Lunes, martes, miércoles, jueves, viernes y sábado.
No language disorders, no language disorders, and this is the patient 10 years after surgery, low-grade glioma without tumor. In insular area, it is very important to have MRI to see the limits of our resection. It was a baby, 3 years old. 3 years old. It's impossible to operate the wake. It's impossible brain mapping in this case, and it is not impossible to use intraoperative MRI. You can see this tumor. Yeah, this is the first intraoperative control with this remnant. In this moment, we stop the surgery, talk all the neurosurgeons with the radiology, with neurology, neurophysiologists, and decided how much of the tumor we are going to remove and go on with the surgery. Here you can see complete resection, and the baby here is completely normal. I think 2 days, 3 days after surgery. The intraoperative images give us the possibility of remove completely the tumor and be sure that we respect the boundaries, the limits of the tumor area. And if we remove completely the tumor, in our experience, if you preserve the boundaries, the limits, and remove only tumor, the patient will be very, very well, very fine. And this is the same patient, several years. We control this baby every year in the Children's Hospital in Buenos Aires. He is in excellent condition with normal school, completely well. Insular tumors, and watch and wait is not an option to in low-grade glioma. Here you can see this small tumor and this huge tumor a few years after. We decide to operate this tumor, which is impressive, good, a huge tumor. We operated this lady in 2007, and here you can see 3 years postoperative with a light hemiparesia here, but with no remnant tumor in the MRI. And this is the same. It is very useful. We have more than 50 patients operated with insular with gliomas localized in insular area. We use transylvian exposure of the transylvian fissure exposure of the insula, and we remove the tumor in the same way like we do it normally. Here we are using subcortical electric stimulation to detect the corticospinal fibers, and this is the surgical field. This is the area of the tumor area, tumor resection, until we can remove completely the tumor, preserving the brain, normal brain. And this is the patient with a few days and several months after surgery. Okay, I'm finishing. 2 minutes more.
Oh,
Um,
okay, Roberto, do you?
I think, okay, I think the goal is complete resection in low-grade glioma. Because if we make a subtotal resection, here you can see in 10 years time, we would be losing nearly 50% of our operated patients. You operate a low-grade glioma, you do a partial resection. The patient is very good, or only 1 day in intensive care, 3 days, 4 days, the patient in his home with his family, the family happy, the doctor happy, but this same patient, 3 years later, 4 years later, 5 years later, will have regrowth of his tumor, of your tumor, and the patient in before 10 years will be dead. It's not a good solution to do partial resection. In our experience, we achieved gross total resection in 81.5% of our cases, not in 100, 400, no. If we left aside 3 lobars glioma, huge glioma, low-grade gliomas, and gliomas what was operated in another department before our surgery, this statistic, this number, grow up to 91% of the cases in which we achieve gross total resection. But this is our experience. Here you can see when we achieve complete resection, talking in low-grade glioma, of course, talking about low-grade glioma, when we achieve gross total resection, near 70% of our patients take into account Kaplan-Meier curve, will be able to cross the 10 years free of tumor and in very good and normal condition, free of illness. But none of the patients with no complete partial biopsy or partial resection, none of them had a life expectancy of 10 years. All of them will be done before 10 years after surgery. That's why I think this is not the final evolution of the glioma. And the main goal, the main objective in low-grade glioma, we think that it is complete removal of the tumor, to try to cure the patient, not left remnant with a patient in perfect condition, because in 3, 4, 5, 7 years, this patient will be dead. Of course, we argue in favor of complete resection with minimal or no permanent neurological dysfunction. Okay, this is my last slide.
Never want to be operated for a glioma.
One question, important question that many people asked after our meeting is, intraoperative MRI, it is necessary or it is not necessary? The best answer for this question, that the people ask in glioma surgery, was, I think, was this answer for Professor Sami. I want you listen, Professor Sami,
without having
1
the
minute.
control during their surgery. Therefore, we don't need to discuss about that. Is it necessary or not necessary? If you have it, it's an advantage. If you don't have it, we cannot change with evac surgery, whatever is possible to do it. But we are happy that we had this opportunity, and this is a brain suite in our department. That was the solution. This is the control room and solution that we operate in the same room, but we turn the patient with the head inside of the MRI and make the. But now we have developed another solution, 2 rooms solution, that in the middle is an intraoperative MR, right and left side, we have 2 operating theaters. And soon I will have these operating theaters in Tehran and in China.
I think this answer that if it is necessary, if it is not necessary, it's not an important question. The question is how we can do with the glioma, and that neurosurgeons agree in remove completely the glioma using the tool that you have in his hands. If like as Professor Sami said, if you have intraoperative MRI, you have advantages, but if you haven't it, you can change it, and you have to operate your patient doing the best that you can do for them. Thank you very much, and I hope sometime we can see soccer again. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, Roberto, thank you very much. Excellent. Okay, we'll open the floor right away. I'm sure there's lots of questions. So just speak up.
Hello.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hello. Hello.
Go ahead.
Hello.
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 Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor, for your presentation. Hello. Hello.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Thank you for your presentation. I have 2 questions. One of them, do you use intraoperative fluorescence 5LA? And that is the message better for total remove, intraoperative MRI or intraoperative fluorescence? And second, my question, most of the case in your practice, you use the intraoperative MRI during the one patient's operating time for checking the tumor 2 times, 3 times, 5 times. Thank you.
John, can I see? Okay.
Hey, you want to screen share? Yeah, you want to screen share again?
I want to see the speaker, the people. I can see the people.
Yeah, I'm here, sir.
Okay, I can't see him.
But I can see,
yes.
I can see you.
Yes. First question.
No, yes, I understand. I'm going to answer you, but I like to see you, but I can't see. Oh, no problem.
Yeah,
my name is Rustam Bek. I am from Uzbekistan.
Okay. The first question, we don't have, because in our country it's not authorized, it's not allowed the fluoresceina yet, but I think it is it is another excellent tool in high-grade gliomas, but it's not so useful in low-grade gliomas or in gliomas that no enhance with contrast. But I don't have experience with this, but I know the techniques, of course, and I think it is a good tool. Main in high-grade glioma. Respect the second question. In the case of this little girl, 2-year-old baby that we operated, we use 8 intraoperative MRI control. 8. You have a cure of learned. Nowadays, I think with two intraoperative MRI or three intraoperative MRI, you can remove completely the tumor and be sure with the last MRI that you remove completely. And it took 20 minutes each intraoperative MRI control. That's this is one of the advantages of low field magnet. That we can move only 1 meter and 20 centimeters the surgical table, and we are talking the image in a few minutes.
Okay, thank you for answer. Thank you for presentation. Thank you.
Okay, more comments, questions?
Can I ask?
Go ahead, Marco.
Hi. First of all, thank you, Professor Herrera, for your presentation. It was absolutely amazing. My question is, when you perform intraoperative MRI, you use also injection of...
I can hear you. I can.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
There are noise, John.
Yeah, I know. These people are muted here. Okay. You should be okay now.
Okay, can I go on?
Yeah, go ahead, Rocco.
Okay.
Yes.
First of all, I want to thank you very much for your presentation, Professor Herrera. It was absolutely amazing, and results are absolutely fantastic. My question is, when you perform intraoperative MRI, do you inject also the contrast enhanced gadolinium?
Yes.
Okay, and there is any risk of false positive gadolinium?
Yes, I understand the question. In high-grade gliomas, we always use gadolinium. And the time that we can see gadolinium in MRI is 4 hours. If we go up more than 4 hours, 50 minutes or 4 hours, it is necessary to repeat the gadolinium doses. The minimal doses that you need to see the tumor. And in many low-grade gliomas, which don't enhance with contrast, we don't use gadolinium. No, we remove it. We do anatomical resection, and we take T1 like a guide, as our guide. T1, we remove the tumor in T1, no in flare. Why? Because if you remove in flare, when you get the new MRI, you can see another time a new flare around the tumor. You remove this around millimeters of tissue and get the new MRI, and you again can see flare, hyperintensity in flare. We decided to remove the tumor several years ago on T1, and all the result that you saw was removing the tumor on take the T1 like a guide.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Prof.
Okay, very good. Abhilash, you had a comment or question? Abhilash Herodis from Tampa.
Yeah, thank you, Professor. That was a fantastic talk. I just had a question about intraoperative shift.
Yes.
During MRI. How do you? What has been your experience, your learning curve with that,
Okay.
and how do you?
This is a good question, but the big shift is impossible to prevent when you use navigation with the MRI before taken before the surgery, given before the surgery. In our case, we use the new the real-time images, because we did we do the MRI in this moment, and we can see the shift. We can take care of the shift because we see the tumor in this exactly moment, and we see the brain surface in this moment. If it moved 20 millimeters, 30 millimeters, we can see it in this moment. And you can see it when you use navigation. You can't correct this because you are using the MRI that you got before the surgery.
Okay.
Understand me?
Thank you.
Okay, next question. We have a couple of people. Let's
Hello.
see. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hello. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Do you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Ait Ben Ali from Marrakesh, Morocco. Thank you very much, Professor, for this very nice lecture. Can you please make some comment about brainstem glioma surgery?
Yes, we have operated some glioma, brainstem glioma with intraoperative MRI. The prognostic, the outcome in low-grade glioma is not the same, but we use intraoperative MRI, for example, in some huge meningiomas that affecting the brainstem, or to guide some biopsies of intrinsic tumor of the brainstem. But I think we have only 2 cases about gliomas localized in the brainstem.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next question.
Hi.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Rafiq. I'm a young neurosurgeon from Algeria.
Welcome back.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Professor, for amazing presentation. I want to ask about your opinion about when to operate low-grade glioma. When the low-grade glioma is diagnosed or when it's symptomatic.
No, well question too. I think the sooner the better. I think you have to operate the tumor when he is small, like the example of the tiger, the baby tiger. If you detected a brain glioma and you think it is a low-grade glioma, I recommend it to remove it as soon as you can do, because you taking into account that in 3, 4, 5 years, this low-grade glioma could be a high-grade glioma. Everybody have some case in low-grade glioma that we wait for several years, but finally it will be a high-grade glioma or a huge tumor, and the consequence to remove it would be very, very poor, very, very bad. I recommend it to remove low-grade glioma when you detected the tumor.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Okay, next question, comment?
Thank you for the presentation, Professor. I'm Dr. Khalif from Kenya. I wanted to get your opinion on the use of intraoperative ultrasound. What is your opinion on that? And number 2, the concept that high-grade gliomas are by definition systemic disease and they are not localized. Okay. From your experience, we see that these patients can be treated. Some of them can live up to 10 years without the tumor recurrence, which is very encouraging.
Okay. Ultrasound is very useful tool. I think after intraoperative MRI, the best tool is ultrasound. We have experience with ultrasound, but neurosurgeon, I say that neurosurgeons are not we are not seeing ultrasound every day, but we see MRI every day, and we are more familiarized with MRI than with ultrasound. But ultrasound is a very the modern ultrasound a very good tool to remove the tumor. And you can detect the difference between tumor and normal brain in most of the cases. It's a good tool. The second question was, sorry?
The concept that high-grade gliomas are by definition a systemic disease by the time we discover them.
Okay. We know the works of Patrick Kelly and Dr. The works of, from France, and we know that glioblastoma is systemic, has systemic spreading in the brain, but I like to think in the same way that Walter Dandy thought in 1928. I think that I'm neurosurgeon, we are neurosurgeon, and if we receive a patient with a tumor, we have to remove the tumor, because there are works in what demonstrated that if you do a biopsy or partial resection, is the same result in high-grade glioma. The difference is when you can remove, when you can do gross total resection. Then if you are going to do partial resection, it's better you do biopsy and you send the patient to his home the other day. No intensive care, no problem with the family, no craniotomy. Biopsy and go home, because it is demonstrated that biopsy in a high-grade glioma and partial resection has the same result. The difference, you can do the difference when you can remove more than 90% of this high-grade glioma, plus radiotherapy, plus temozolomide, that nowadays is a very good tool to like complement in high-grade glioma.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you,
answered my question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good interaction here.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you
Go
very
ahead.
much, Professor Herrera. My name is Dum Guga, a resident in neurosurgery in Nigeria. Thank you very much for the beautiful presentation. My question is, after these beautiful resections, which you're able to achieve, some years down the line, do you still have cases of recurrence of these high-grade gliomas, particularly? And for those that you said died some years down the line, what were the causes of mortality? Was it recurrence or was it some other problem? Because I noticed in a number of your patients, 5, 6, 7 years down the line, they were still having no recurrence at all from the follow-up MRIs. So did you record recurrence in some of them eventually?
Yes, the patients die from recurrence in most of the cases from recurrence. In some cases, we want to, our objective is extended the life in the patient until 3 years. When we have recurrence, we view the new MRI, and we decided if this patient have a new chance to operate. If I can reoperate the patient, we decided to reoperate. But it is not the same, because in most of the cases, the tumor is in the midline or more extended in more than one lobe in this hemisphere, or cross over the midline to the other side. It is not the same result when you reoperate the patient that after the first surgery. When the first surgery, in most of the cases, we achieve 3 years survival. Repeat, with radiotherapy and chemotherapy after surgery. But when we reoperate, we can get 1 year more, one more year survival in many patients, but no more than this.
Okay, thank you. Please, one more question. What's your protocol? What's your protocol for post-operative follow-up MRI? How regularly do you conduct these follow-up MRIs?
John, ¿qué me pregunta? ¿Cuál es el protocolo? John.
Yes, él dice que cuando tiene un MRI más después, ¿cuándo es su protocolo?
Okay. We in the high grade and low grade is the same protocol. We do MRI the first month, at 3 months, 6 months, and the year, and then during the first 5 years we do MRI control 1 time each year. Sorry, until the 5th year we do 1 MRI each 6 months, and after 5 years operated, 1 MRI each year, in some cases 20 years after surgery.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very good. Other questions, comments? It's good interaction today, Roberto.
Okay.
Yeah, buena interacción hoy.
Yes. Very.
Del todo el mundo, de Africa.
I'm happy with this conference that we take in contact with many surgeons and young surgeons around the world. Sean, thank you for your work in this.
Well, I hope you continue. I hope we get people like Yuha and other people doing a lot now, because there are so many residents at home now. This will never happen again in our history, probably.
Okay, yes. The whole world have many good people and many good neurosurgeons, mainly the young neurosurgeons. But we have very, very bad politics. But the rest of the people are very good people.
Yes. Okay, I guess we'll wrap it up because we're going on to Dr. Goel. Thank you very much, Roberto, and we look forward to having you back on. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, Dr. Goel, are you there?
Sí.
Dr. Goel está allá. Let me see if Dr. Goel, as you can see, we're so well organized here. Yeah, I'll be back in a sec. Just take a little break until I get a hold of Dr. Goel.
Can you see me, John?
Oh, there you are. Okay, there you go. I wasn't sure if you were here. Welcome.
Thank you, John.
Okay, we're ready for the next presentation. Roberto was great. I don't know if you saw any of it, but
yes, I enjoyed it.
Okay, Dr. Goel, it's all yours.
Okay.
Okay, John, are you ready with me?
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Okay. So you must be already prepared. After about 15 minutes, there will be a 10-minute break in my internet around 6:25 to 6:27 or something like that. So maybe about 5-7 minutes at that time, John. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. So I want to talk to you about some technical issues about atlantoaxial fixation. Atlantoaxial joint is a complex joint. It is, the bones are different from rest of the spine. Atlantoaxial joint is a unique construction. It is a miracle of God. It gives you the center of mobility and center of stability. And whilst it is stable and whilst it is mobile, it gives a free passage to the most vital neural and vascular structures of the body. So this is a divine architecture, which I like to call, and this divinity sometimes fails, not because of the divine problem, human problem. Why dislocation happens? Of course, in some cases, we know that trauma is the cause. In some patients, we do not know what is the cause. We should never blame embryological dysgenesis to be the cause. That is my primary message, that never say that embryogenesis is a problem or the person has been born with an unstable atlantoaxial joint. You must always say that there has been some issue related to human misadventure that caused atlantoaxial instability. This issue is a big one. Maybe I discuss it on some other occasion. Today, my subject is to discuss about the anatomy and about the technique of atlantoaxial stabilization. As I mentioned to you, this is a very beautiful pillar. And you see this pillar has a bifurcation here to support the roof. Similarly, there are several pillars around the world. This is the pillar and it bifurcates. And this bifurcation has a purpose. It supports the roof with added strength. And this is the human pillar. And this bifurcation, this V of the Y, is the craniovertebral junction. This involves three bones. One is the occipital bone.
Okay, we may get a delay here. Just hang in there. This may be the delay he was talking about. Yeah, this is a typical delay in the internet speed over there in India that has happened many times in the past couple of weeks. And usually resolves within a minute or two. I don't think it'll be much longer. In normal times, his computer would have been fixed, but these are not our normal times. Still waiting.
Hay que hacer exactamente. Cada vez que se levanta hace 10 metros de ida con el andador, 10 metros de vuelta. Cuando va al baño otros 7, 8 metros con el andador.
Okay, Dr. Gwell's on his way back in. Here he's coming in now. Can anybody hear me?
John,
Yeah, okay, you're back. Great. Go ahead.
back on the phone
Okay.
from
You're kind of breaking up, Dr. Gwell. This is a little worse than normal. Can you hear me, Dr. Goel? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. We appear to be having a little problem here. Yeah, well, you know, I'm not a neurosurgeon, but we got some time here. So if anybody has anything interesting case or something you want to talk about until we get going back, or if whatever, the air is open if you want to use it. Hello, Andrew Wilner. Hello, Andrew.
There, John, nice to see you. How are
I
you?
say, welcome, Andrew. Well, you know, I'm glad you're here because you can relate to what's going on. The speaker's internet went south. And you being an announcer also, I'm sure you've been faced with situations like that.
Oh, it's amazing, you know, the tech. Even when you go to a big official medical conference at a hotel that does it every day, I mean, it's so common. Things don't work. It's like, why doesn't it work?
Yeah. Well, you know, the audience, there's about 70 people here waiting. And this happens every day. He has like a work or internet slow time at a certain time in Mumbai, I believe. And he predicts it, and it usually happens.
Wow.
But everybody waits 5-10 minutes, and he restarts. And most likely he's going to come back and restart.
I hope so. Wow, 78 participants. This is a really progress.
Yeah, well, you know, Andrew, the thing that really gives me inspiration is the interactivity. The level of it is increasing because, you know, there's sound problems, there's disparity between internet connections, but lately there's been great interactions. And I could see it today. People were kind of looking at it going, wow, you know, someone from Africa and then some South America, and then, you know, commenting clearly. Some days it works, some, you know, other days it's, you know, it's horrible. The sound breaks up and can't get through.
Well, you know, now that you've got Eastern Standard Time on your announcements, I can figure out what time the programs are.
Oh, okay. I use Google. I just say, what time is it here? But it gets confusing when you do conferences all times of day and night. So I have to ask, what day is it?
What do you see behind me?
I see, yeah, it's a nice background.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Then anybody, and then, by the way, to the audience, if you want to put a background, you can go next to your camera in your Zoom setup in the bottom, open it up, and it says choose virtual background.
Yeah.
You can choose your background. You should have that option.
But I figured that's your real background there, Miami Beach, right?
Oh, yeah. No, it's not. It's close, but it's not real. Not real. Are you in the Philippines now?
No, I'm in Memphis, Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm still working.
Yeah, okay. Okay, just emergencies or everything?
Everything, 7 on, 7 off. So this is an off day.
You've seen COVID patients?
Yeah, some. Neurology hasn't been bad yet.
Okay.
We just seeing the usual strokes and headaches and seizures and traumas. We don't have too much COVID in Memphis, but I'm afraid that's going to change over the next few weeks.
Yeah.
You know, they're already talking about loosening things up, and it's like, oh, that's the wrong thing to do now. Let people out.
Yes, good signs though. Italy's improving.
John, I'm ready now.
Okay, great. Excuse me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, welcome back. It's all yours.
Now you are used to these things, my dear John.
Yeah, everyone else hangs in there too.
Okay, so now let's begin. So this divine human spine is also a Y-shaped structure, and the upper V of the Y is the craniovertebral junction. Occipito-atlantal joint. Occipito-atlantal joint is one joint, and atlantoaxial joint is the other joint. Occipito-atlantal joint is the most stable joint of the entire body. As I was mentioning to you the other day, the ligaments are like steel rods. They just cannot break. And if you want to try, you can go to the cadaver lab and use knife, or you use a hammer, or you use a sledgehammer, or you use an axe, but you will not be able to break these ligaments. So this is the hallmark of stability, and this is the hallmark of mobility. So stability and mobility are the hallmarks of craniovertebral junction. This is the most mobile joint of the body. and this is the most stable joint of the body. More the mobility, more is the possibility of instability. So craniovertebral junction instability for me means atlantoaxial instability. And craniovertebral junction stabilization to me means atlantoaxial stabilization. So this is a very beautiful bony structure, craniovertebral junction. And you see the facet of C1, the rostral part, the upper part of the facet of the C1 is such a strong facet with ragged bone around it, the facet. These are all meant for ligaments which hold this with the skull, with the condyle in a very strong fashion. Similarly, this is the odontoid process. This is the arch of the atlas. This is the transverse process of the atlas. This is the vertebral foramen of the atlas. You see the atlas is quite a wide structure. The transverse process of the atlas is the biggest transverse process in the whole body in relative terms. Similarly, the spinous process of the C2 is the biggest spinous process in the body. This facet is like sacroiliac joint, almost like similar kind of a shape and architecture and strength. If you ask me which is the strongest joint of the body, I may have some difficulty in giving first to this occipitoatlantal joint or sacroiliac joint. Both may be almost equal in stability and strength. Maybe this is stronger. So this is the C1. This is the vertebral artery foramen. Here is on the superior aspect of the vertebral artery foramen goes the vertebral artery like this. And this facet is round and flat, as you can see. There is no other joint such round and flat in the whole body. Like there are hinge joints, there are ball and socket joint, there are various kinds of joint, but round and flat. And because it is round and flat, and it is held by ligaments which allow quite a bit range of movements, there is a possibility of an unstable atlantoaxial joint. This is the C2 facet. And you see this C2 facet is also flat and round. And this is the most dangerous bone of the body. And this is the birthplace of all the problems that the human body faces due to craniovertebral junction problem. This piece of bone, every spine surgeon is afraid of, and this piece of bone hits the neural structures, and that is what we want to prevent. There are multiple ligaments around this which do not allow that in normal human framework to this bone to go and create devastation to the human body. There is a transverse ligament, there are multiple ligaments, apical ligament, and so on. And you see here, now the other thing which is atypical about this bone is that the facet of C2 facet is the most unusual facet in the whole body. Like this C1 facet is the superior facet and inferior facet are in one block. On the other hand, the superior facet of C2 is placed anteriorly and the inferior facet of C2 is placed behind. So they are not in one pillar kind of formation, and they are joined by the pedicle and pars of the C2 here. And the vertebral artery which comes like this goes here in relationship to the pedicle and C2 and then turns back in a form of loop and goes in the transverse process of C2. So this is the C1. You can see the beautiful anterior arch of the atlas. This is the superior aspect of the arch of atlas. You see quite a big facet which joins with the occipital condyle, and you see the large space that it gives to the various ligaments. And this is the transverse process. And this is the anterior arch of the atlas. This is the transverse process of the atlas. So this is quite a small bone, but quite an important bone for us. This is the C2 bone in all its divinity. This is the king of bones. Odontoid process is here, superior facet, inferior facet. If you see this perspective, you may think that the insertion of C2 screw is quite an easy job. But the problem is not because of the size, but the problem is that the course of the vertebral artery inside in this area can lead to problems when you are inserting the C2 screw. So this is the C2 vertebra in a different perspective. You see this is the vertebral artery foramen. The vertebral artery comes from below and then does not go here straight. It goes inside and makes a loop here and then comes out from the C2 transverse process from this vertebral artery foramen. So what I'm going to show you is my technique which we described, as I mentioned to you, in the year 1988, 32 years ago. And there is no question that this is quite a technique, and we must all learn this technique, because atlantoaxial instability, a good stabilization can mean a good new life to the person. So this was 1988, and subsequently our experience is beyond 2,500 cases with this kind of fixation. So my technique, which I'm going to show you today, is open the joint, remove the articular cartilage, and stuff this joint with bone graft. So that is the technique. And this is mobile atlantoaxial dislocation. This is the fixation. This is the realignment. And these are the screws in the C1 and C2. This is the technique. This is the C1 facet. There is no problem because the vertebral artery goes above the facet. So when you expose from this direction, C1 facet screw insertion is not a great issue. It is, of course, not easy, but not remarkably difficult as regards the vertebral artery. It does happen in cases with basilar invagination and some complex craniovertebral anomalies where the vertebral artery goes in this direction from here. And particularly in cases where there is assimilation of atlas, the course of the vertebral artery may be in this perspective. So you have to be very careful about the vertebral artery. So our screw insertion has to be medial and superior. You can even modify the technique, like one screw is going in C1 and one screw is going in a transarticular fashion like Miguel had described. So this type of fixation I call double insurance fixation. You see, this is an unstable spine. One screw is going like this, one screw is going like this, and this happens with me quite a number of occasions. Because my screw direction is in the rostral direction, one screw in C1 and one screw in a transarticular, it gives you a double insurance fixation. So the issue is the vertebral artery, and vertebral artery is the main issue. Vertebral artery comes underneath here like this, and then makes a loop in the pedicle and facet, and then turns like this. You see on one side, the vertebral artery is hypoplastic, and one side it is a dominant vertebral artery. This is the vertebral artery groove. It does not mean that the vertebral artery completely occupies that groove all the time. In our article long time ago, maybe 25 years ago, I had mentioned that the vertebral artery has a dynamic relationship. When you turn your head, the vertebral artery goes inside. When you turn your head the other way, the vertebral artery comes out. So vertebral artery has a dynamic relationship with this groove. And we should never think that this groove is completely occupied by the vertebral artery in neutral position. So this, otherwise it is loaded with venous circulation. Lot of venous plexus is there, and which makes our operation difficult. This is of course a rare situation. In one of my dissections, we identified that the vertebral artery is going deep into the facet. You see, this is the articulation, and you in no way you can introduce your screw inside without damaging the vertebral artery. But recently I will show you that we have described a technique of mobilizing this artery and introducing the screw. The other thing, you see, this is this vertebral artery goes above the arch of atlas. This is also placed loaded with venous plexuses. This is the vertebral artery here, and this place is also loaded with venous circulation. The other thing I want to show you is the ganglion, C2 ganglion, and in the lateral aspect of the C2 ganglion, there is vertebral artery. So if we have to section the ganglion, we have to section it under vision after appropriate dissection. 3D models are my latest beauties. You see, this is the thing which I was showing. There is a simulation of atlas, and the vertebral artery is traversing not above the arch of atlas, but in the surgical field. So you have to be particularly careful about this, and to give you this impression, these 3D models are wonderful. So this is the models that we have published for the first time in the literature for craniovertebral junction. We then subsequently also publish it for arteriovenous malformations. So this is the beautiful model. It gives you, this is another model which I'm showing you, has a course when we come from behind. This vertebral artery will be right in front of the joint. So you have to, if you want to do it, you have to be really careful and really do a good job. You can hold the model in your hand by the side of your surgical field and do the dissection under vision. The other important structure that comes into your picture is C2 ganglion. And this C2 ganglion neurectomy that we described in 1988, there is no question this opened the field for Atlantoaxial joint, and it completely revolutionized lateral mass fixation techniques. Sectioning of the C2 ganglion was described in that article of mine, but as I have progressed, I do not section it in all the cases, but in complex cases like complex basilar arteries, basilar invagination, I need to section the C2 ganglion because I have a complete feeling that this operation has to be done under direct, complete panoramic vision. Unless that vision is there, you should not operate and do this operation under vision. The other very important structure that you see is the C2 spinous process loaded with multiple muscles, and these muscles can demolish any implant that you will put from the front. So that is why I say that I don't like any surgery done from anterior for craniovertebral junction, because you do plate and screw fixation or you do any kind of implant, these muscles are so strong that they will demolish any implant. This is my feeling. So I don't like to do any fixation from front now, but I will, if I'm not sure, but maybe I show you some of my fixations from front as well. So this is my surgical position, head high under traction, and this head is almost in a floating position. It does not touch the headrest. And this gives you a neutral head position. It realigns the craniovertebral junction, and it protects the eyeball and the face during, of course, you will put some cotton and all those things you will put here. And also it gives you a direct trajectory for surgery here. and the venous congestion in the field is little bit reduced because of this head high position, and it is a mobile situation. So let me show you one video of my surgery. So I am going to show you my technique of atlantoaxial fixation. This is the C2 spinous process, this incision, and my incision is about 4 centimeter above and 4 centimeter below the C2 spinous process. Then I exposed, and if you see, my surgical field is always quite bloody because I don't use coagulation at all. No unipolar, no bipolar. It is a sharp resection. It is only very rarely that you will see my bipolar coming into picture. And many of these cases I can do quite quickly because sometimes I do 6 cases a day of this kind. I did 250 cases in one year last year in 2019. And this corona, as I was telling the other day, has little bit demolished me. This is the C2 spinous process, subperiosteal dissection of the lamina, going along to the pedicle and going into the joint. You see, this is quite very little editing is done in this. And I have entered into the C1, C2 articulation here. You see C1, C2 subperiosteal dissection. There will be a lot of venous structure in this territory. I have opened the joint quite widely, as you can see, and this is the articulation. Then, as I mentioned to you, then I expose it wider. I expose the facet and the facetal articulation widely. Then I cut the articular cartilage, and then very frequently I drill the articular cartilage. In degenerative situation, now I have put gel foam to avoid bleeding, and I will now go on to the other side. Now please see the dissection on the other side. I am doing a subperiosteal dissection on the lamina. This cut is there. This is the cranial, caudal. This is the C2 spinous process. This is the lamina of the C2. And this is, you see, I am doing a subperiosteal dissection. And also you realize how much unstable this bone is. This is quite an unstable bone. Now on the C2 lamina, I go along into the pedicle of the C2 and then into the C2, C1, C2 articulation. This area will be heavily loaded with venous plexus, and you have to be prepared to handle that venous plexus. In this situation, it is not bleeding that heavily, but sometimes this bleeding can completely devastate the surgeon. But you have to handle it somehow or the other. So this is the C2 facet I am exposing. And you see I have introduced, this is my instrument here, which is keeping the facet joint articulation distracted. Now I have exposed the C1, C2 articulation quite widely. And now I have introduced some gel foam, and I have come back on the left side. So this is C2 spinous process. This is extradural venous bleeding, which is happening. And now I have introduced some Surgicel in this venous compartment. And now I will do instrumentation. So this is the drill that has come in. And I am drilling the pars region just to put my plate. Sometimes I do rod fixation also, but I don't like rod fixation so much. I have, my technique which I had described. Now here, see, I'm removing the articular cartilage with the help of this drill. This is power-driven burr, and you see this is the C1 facet, and I am drilling the articular cartilage, which I mentioned to you is my very important component of my operation, to open the joint, remove the articular cartilage. This is very important component of my surgery. And I must, you see, by the time my instrument is distracting the joint, Then I introduce bone graft into the articular cavity. This is also one very fantastic technique of doing this operation. If I am not able to introduce bone graft in the facet joint, which happens extremely rarely, in some complex situation, I will not be happy with that surgery, because introduction of bone graft not only stabilizes the articulation, but also gives bone for bone fusion. I introduce, as I had described, intra-articular spacers on some occasions, and that spacer surgery also I will show you on some of the, maybe today or maybe the next time. So I have made a hole in the C1 facet here. See this C1 facet hole? There is a lot of bone graft in the articulation. There has been drilling in this parts of the C2. Now I'm introducing a C1 screw with a plate. You see my plate, this is designed by me and this is patented by me. And if you, this is wonderful, and I'm using this. Now you see I have tightened the C2 screw a little bit. Then I am moving the plate to be able to identify my site for C2 screw insertion. Of course, you can use navigation to guide your screw insertion. If the vertebral artery is in a dangerous position, then you make a guide hole into the C2 pedicle under navigation vision, or if the vertebral artery is safe, identifying the medial aspect of the pedicle of C2, then mobilize the plate properly. And you see it is now right in my vision, that hole. And then I introduce the screw and tighten the screw over the plate, which is difficult, which is not possible when you're using rods and polyaxial screws. I use sometimes those kind of screws that is nothing but changing the quality of the screws and quality of the plate. Actually, it is the same technique. We described this technique in 1988, and you see now I'm tightening the screw over the plate and over the facets. And this gives a remarkable stability to this joint complex. Atlantoaxial fixation is now done beautifully. If you want to use rods, as I mentioned to you, you can use rods instead of plates, but that is just a little bit of a, now I will go on the other side. Please carefully have a look here. Now here, this is the atlantoaxial joint, which I will be opening up. You see, I am elevating the C2 ganglion rostrally. I have not cut the C2 ganglion in this case. And same thing I did here, and this has been edited, this part of the operation. Then the next thing that I do is to cut the muscles of C2 very elaborately. These muscles of C2 have to be cut, because unless you cut the C2 muscles, they will keep their pull on the C2 and dislodge any kind of implant that you have put. That is the reason I don't like anterior surgery, because these C2 muscles are so strong. Then I put a lot of bone graft for bone fusion. And that is the end of my operation. Now I will like to show you another video. This is my technique of posterior. I don't want to now, just let me come directly. So this is the atlantoaxial instability that you see. And there is in flexion, there is an in extension also. So it is a kind of a fixed atlantoaxial instability. And these are the facet articulation. There is some facetal instability. So this is the coronal image of the C1, C2 articulation. So here you see I do this operation under traction. Here the traction is applied. This is Gardner-Wells traction. And by the time I'm applying traction and by the time I'm turning the patient, my hand is always holding the head. You see, my hand is holding the head all the time. And even when I'm turning the patient, the traction will be head and the traction will be on, because under anesthesia, the muscles become weak and the traction and that hold which the muscles provide will not be available. So you see I am holding the traction and then I'm holding the neck and then I'm turning the patient. This is very important. This turning of the patient has to be under direct, you see, it has to be quite a controlled, and then I put this weight. And now if you realize you see, it is not this head holder. There is some cotton here, but the traction it is not on the head holder. So let me show you again this surgery. I hope this surgery. So first I'm exposing I'm feeling the C2 spinous process. Then I have cut the C2 spinous process, subperiosteal dissection. Do you see subperiosteal dissection? Subperiosteal dissection. This part of the exposure is not edited. You see this is the C2 spinous process. This is the lamina. This is the pedicle. The vertebral artery will be lateral to the pedicle. The cord will be medial to the pedicle. Here will be the C2 ganglion, which is coming into the picture. Now I am going on the other side. This much dissection I don't do under microscope. Subsequent dissection I do under microscope. Here maybe I'm doing under microscope just to show you. Now I am coming on the left side. You see this is the C2 ganglion, which I'm not sure what I'm going to do here, but maybe I cut, maybe I. See, this is the large C2 ganglion. So I am subperiosteally dissecting on the pedicle, and then I reach the articulation. You see the C2 ganglion is coming right in my picture all the time. So maybe I'm cutting the ganglion here, I think. Yeah, so ganglion is being cut. I must tell you that nowadays I do not cut the ganglion at all. Actually, in very, very rarely I cut. But the very fact that there is a possibility of cutting it gives you a very good kind of understanding that if you are not having a sufficient exposure, you can cut the ganglion and nothing much happens except for numbness, little bit numbness over the suboccipital region. And then of course you have to protect the scalp from any ulceration that is possibility is there because of the numbness. So now I am exposing the articulation. As you can see, the articulation has been exposed. Now I'm distracting. You see the articulation I'm distracting? using my firm instrument, and then I will prepare for my instrumentation. So I am exposing the C1 facet for my screw insertion. All the time you may not be able to get this kind of C1 facet. I'm introducing some Surgicel in the lateral gutter around the facet. May not be necessary all the time. Now, basically you see the joint is open, and now I'm preparing for my instrumentation. Just to probably I was recording to show you, I am introducing some Surgicel. Normal situation, there is no Surgicel. Bleeding will happen in this operation. You see, now I'm introducing bone in the articulation. This is a very important step of my operation. Lot of bone graft has been introduced, and as I have mentioned, this bone graft is harvested from the iliac crest. Now I'm preparing my instrumentation, little bit of the pars lateral aspect of lamina I am drilling to expose to keep the space available for my plate, which will land here after my procedure of C1 screw and plate insertion. My plate, the C2 part of the plate will land here. I'm drilling to keep the plate flat on the C2. And this drilling also helps in when I am going to put my bone graft, it will help assist in the bone fusion. Now you see how flat that area has been made, the whole pedicle of C2, and there is continuous drilling, as whenever we have to do any kind of power-driven drilling, we have to be continuously irrigating. That is the basis of drilling technique. You just cannot do drilling without. So this is the joint, there is bone inside the joint, there is a C1 facet. I'm making a hole in the C1 facet using a power drill. This bone is like a rock. There is no bone stronger in the body like the facet of C1. There is no part of the vertebra stronger than the facets. There is not a single bone in the body except teeth, if you like to call them bone, which is stronger than the facet of C1. So now I'm mobilizing the plate and getting it ready for the C2 screw insertion. Now I know exactly where my hole will come, and then I will see my C2 pedicle, and under vision I will make a hole in the pedicle. And in this case, you see how medial I'm going on the pedicle. Medial is very important, medial and superior on the pedicle under vision. Visualize the medial aspect of your pedicle and then make a hole. No remote screw insertion. Make it as close to the articulation as possible. This plate has to be as small as possible. Using longer plates, longer screws can be dangerous. You see here, I'm making a hole in the medial aspect of the pedicle and going rostral. You see here, it is showing how my screw is going. You see here, beautiful demonstration of my screw passage. Going medial and superior. And then I tighten the screw, and same procedure I will like to do on the other side. As regard basilar invagination is concerned, of course, basilar invagination is another complex subject. I will like to show the treatment of basilar invagination in my subsequent lecture. Here I have described the use of intra-articular spacers in the year 2000, means 20 years ago. And this was my first child. I showed you this image the other day, the first child that I did. And you see, he had come on a wheelchair. And he comes to me after 3 months standing. His father is still holding him, but he's standing. And you see, this is basilar invagination. Open the joint, distract the facet. This is after some time the fusion has occurred, and there is craniovertebral junction realignment. And this technique you have to learn. Maybe I have this video. Let me see. I'll show you a little bit here. Craniovertebral junction realignment. I don't want to show you my face too much. So the facets are like this. The facets are in an abnormal position. So I'm opening the C2. This is the C2 spinous process. There is assimilation of atlas in this situation. You see, I'm opening, I have a little bit, maybe I'll go here. You see, I'm opening the articulation. This is the C2 spinous process. This is the lamina, opening the articulation. I'm not sure whether I'm cutting the ganglion or not, but if necessary, because there is assimilation of atlas, the space is a little bit tight here. Now I'm introducing my distractor. You see there is assimilation of atlas, and the space is a little bit compact here. Now you see here, I have opened the joint and distracted the facet. There was no space earlier. Now I have distracted the facet, and this will lead to reduction of the basilar invagination. So there is no question that transoral surgery is history now. If you can open the joint, if you can distract the facet, matter is closed. If you can fix. You see, this is the C1 facet, this is the C2 facet, this is the C1 facet, C2. And you see how I'm distracting, and then I will do my same maneuvering here. Then I'm cutting the articular cartilage. And then in this situation, I will drill the articular cartilage, or may not drill, because that here I'm drilling the articular cartilage. And then I will introduce a lot of bone graft into the articulation. Or earlier I used to introduce intra-articular spacers, which I call this operation of joint jamming. You see here, I'm introducing quite a huge bone graft into the facetal articulation. Did you see that? I hope you can see it. Some more bone, you see quite a large piece of bone, and this will keep it distracted. My purpose of my operation is craniovertebral junction stabilization, atlantoaxial stabilization. I never include the occipital bone in the fixation construct. For a lot of time now, I don't introduce spacers, which here I'm introducing a spacer. Normally, I don't introduce nowadays. This is if I'm using a spacer, this must be a very old tape of mine. So bone graft has to be placed in any case. And this spacer, I must tell you, for last 15 years, I'm not using any of these spacers, only bone graft. These spacers are patented on my name in India and in US, but I have a little bit gone away from these spacers. Now you see it is completely like a rock here. I don't think you can move it. Even if you stand on the C2 spinous process, you will not be able to move. It is a rock. And now I am doing my fixation using, you see there is a spacer there. And these spacers I'm not using for now several years. Now one screw, I have one hole I have made in the C1 facet. This operation is a life-giving operation. If you really want to give life to these patients, if you get hold of such a patient, it is not easy to get these patients. These are relatively rare problems, but somehow I'm getting these patients from all over the place. And this gives me a very big advantage. You see, it gives you cannot do one operation or two operations in 1 year and get very comfortable with this operation. As I mentioned to you, 250 or 260 operations in 1 year. In 1 day, 6 operations was my maximum. And this operation which you are watching also is not too much an edited version. Now you see there is a spacer in the joint. I know my hole now where under vision I will make a hole into the C2 under vision. And of course the vertebral artery has to be properly identified where it is. You can use navigation. I must tell you, we have navigation in our department. I used to do a little bit earlier, but now I don't use navigation at all. Experience of this thing does help. I'm not saying I've never damaged the vertebral artery. I have damaged vertebral artery on several occasions, and I am going to tell you how to handle the vertebral artery, maybe in some slides that will come now subsequently. So I have made a hole little bit. I have to go little parallel to the bones because there is a spacer. I have told you I don't use spacer too often now. And I don't think there is too much of a great need for spacer. But there are some special indications and special, you must have a handle of this technique because it gives you like a rock kind of stability. And now you see you are introducing your implant. So that is the technique which you must have enjoyed. So I will go. So this kind of, you see, this kind of very big basilar invagination, of course, this was a rheumatoid case. You can introduce a spacer, get the thing back into action, and you can reduce the instability. There is another case here, which I may avoid. So your screw is, you know, it has to be nicely, there is a possibility of vertebral artery injury. So your screw has to be quite superior and medial. Sometimes on a rare occasion that vertebral artery hole, this was in a, you see, this is a very rare situation where the pedicle and the hole is right in the pedicle in proximity to the facets. This is the intra-articular spacers that we have devised, and I had called this technique joint jamming technique. Like in this situation, you may not be able to introduce the screw, but you can stabilize the joint by this joint jamming technique, and you may not need any C1, C2 plate or any kind of instrumentation. Of course, I don't do this. I always use plate and screw. This was the technique I described in 2004 to 2007, and it was published in 2007. This is another spacer without any plate and screw. I do not do these things. Another plate and this basilar invagination realignment only with this spacer. Sometimes when there is a vertebral artery and you cannot, your screw cannot go, I have used spacer without doing this. Is on the other side, this side, but on this side I have introduced this spacer. When there is a problem with vertebral artery and you cannot do your screw implantation in the pedicle of C2, you can do C2 spinous process or C2 laminar screw. And this screw, I had first described this screw in the year 2004. Before anyone else had described, laminar screws were described by me first, and you must go and see this article. Laminar screws were not described by anybody else. And laminar screw you can use on some occasions where you cannot do your C2 screw because of the difficulty in putting. I do not use these screws at all now. This is a very historical article of mine. I will show you what I do now. So here also you see what has been. Sorry. Here you see on both sides, I have used these kind of occipital screws and C2 spinous laminar screws. I again want to tell you that although occipital screws were described first time by us in the literature, we were amongst the first ones. I do not use occipital in my fixation at all now, and I consider it completely historical procedure. Now you see here caudally directed inferior facetal and transfacetal screws. Suppose you are not able to introduce your screw in the vertebra in the superior facet, but you can introduce your screw then in the inferior facet, which is away from the vertebral artery. You see in the inferior facet, which is away, I do sometimes this technique when I'm not able to introduce my screw in the C2 facet because of the vertebral artery, or for some other reason, like sometimes the pedicle can get disrupted, it can be injured, it can be fractured. There can be various things that can happen. In that situation, I can introduce C2 inferior facetal screws. You see this inferior facetal screw is away from the vertebral artery, this direction, beautiful screw. And you can use a transarticular C2-3 screw if you are having problem. So instead of spinolaminar screws or laminar screw, these screws are far, far more stronger and superior. You see here, there is a large high riding vertebral artery. So I have gone and introduced my screw in the inferior facet on one side. And this is after surgery, you see realignment. And I have done this kind of screw implantation on several occasions. You see there is the bone is deficient here in this area. There was, for some reason, I don't know for what reason, but there is no bone. And the vertebral artery is here. And you have introduced the C1 screw, and the vertebral artery is also going behind the C1 facet. So there is some problem here. And in that situation, I have gone in the inferior facet. Sometimes now I do quite often vertebral artery mobilization. So this is the vertebral artery, high riding vertebral artery. So I drill this posterior part of the bone, and then I mobilize the bone and then introduce the screw. This is quite a common technique which I use. You see, this is vertebral artery. Of course, this is a cadaver specimen. Vertebral artery, you can actually move the vertebral artery out of field, and this technique I have described in one of my recent articles. And this article says mobilization of the vertebral artery an option for C2 screw fixation in high riding vertebral artery. There is a small video. I don't want to go too much in this video now, but I will just show you a little bit. Now you see here, I'm mobilizing this is on the right side. Just see this. I am now exposing the vertebral artery here. This was very high riding vertebral artery. I am exposing the vertebral artery. You can use drill also. You see now, I'm not sure how clean the image is, but now what I'm doing is I am retracting the artery away from the C2 pedicle and facet. You see this, you can see the facet here. And this instrument is actually, you see here, you see the vertebral artery is pulsating in the picture here. You see it is pulsating? You cannot introduce the screw. Now what I'm doing is, I have exposed the artery. Now I am retracting the artery away from the facet, protecting the artery very heavily, introduce some Surgicel and other things, and then making a hole into the facet of C2. This can be quite easily done. Believe me, this is not such a devastating kind of a situation. Then I am just preparing for introduction of my screw. You see this instrument is protecting it. You see the vertebral artery, I am now pushing it away, and there is the hole in the facet of C2. I am not sure in this blood if you can really visualize, but you can see the vertebral artery pulsating. And now I am keeping my plate over vertebral artery, retracting the vertebral artery away from the picture. And then introducing the screw into the facet, directly into the facet of C2. This is, I must tell you, looks a little bit difficult, but it is not that difficult. So here, this is the same patient. You see there is a very high vertebral artery foramen going right in the middle. You see this vertebral artery has been mobilized inferiorly, and then there is C1, C2 fixation. This technique can be used in several situations where the vertebral artery you can mobilize and then introduce your screw. In this kind of situation, you have no option other than doing either C3 screw here or doing fixation solid only on one side is also good. Sometimes I have done in the past only one side fixation, but there is a beautiful articulation. You can introduce transarticular screw right from here. And this is a beautiful anatomy. You must know how to handle the situation in difficult. You see, this is another case. The vertebral artery is very high riding. My vertebral artery has been retracted and the screw has been put. So I have done this on several occasions. As I have mentioned to you, basilar invagination gives a wonderful new life to these unfortunate children. They give a most beautiful smile that you have never seen. They get new life in the immediate postoperative period. You have to learn to do this technique. And when you do this technique, please remember me, because this is the most beautiful kind of thing. In my long time ago, you see, in 1994, I used to do a lot of transoral surgery for this kind of situation. And very extensive. Transoral surgery was a very common operation in my field at that time. And I had introduced this kind of plate, you see, in the clivus and in the C3. So I was doing transoral instrumentation and transcervical instrumentation on a very regular basis. This is another case where I have done transoral and then I have done clivus to C3 fixation. This is another case where I had done, you see, this is basilar invagination. I had done very big decompression, and then I have put the whole iliac crest in the mouth. And this is C23 disc. I had come and removed from the mouth this C23 disc. And then this patient I had removed from the mouth C3, and then I had done instrumentation from transcervical route. This kind of, very complex anomaly I had done from the mouth. You see this kind of fixation after a very horrendous decompression. But now I am saying transoral surgery for last 20 years is completely historical in my department. These kind of fixation
Maybe another freeze. But he didn't leave the screen. That's a good sign. Just hang in there. Usually comes back. Well, always comes back, actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is after transoral decompression. This is occipitocervical fixation. This is another occipitocervical fixation after foramen magnum decompression. But today, if you ask me, is occipital fixation necessary? And this was the editorial I had written in 2010. I can tell you for last 15 years at least in my department, there is no question of occipital fixation. Occipital fixation is sometimes, I will say, okay, do it, what I can tell you. It can be done when you are not able to do, you have gone in and you are not able to expose the C1. Then you have an option of doing, but I will say you be like a tiger, you don't accept defeat. You have to do it, means you have to do it. There is no question. Occipital inclusion is a historical operation in my field. Transoral operation is a completely a historical operation in my field. And now I have to tell you that I have completely demolished foramen magnum decompression from the neurosurgical field in my department. No foramen magnum decompression for last 20 years. And thank you, gentlemen, for your patient hearing. I hope you have got some fantastic messages and you will do this operation. One thing you have to promise that when you do this operation, please remember me. I hope you remember me. Thank you very much.
Okay, Dr. Well, thank you very much. And we'll open it right up for comments or questions. And the
yeah,
floor,
John?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hello. Hello.
Go ahead.
John.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, so go ahead. Go ahead. Someone continue.
Hello. Professor? Yeah, Professor?
Hello, John.
Yes, hold on. Let me get you off the screen now. Okay, just a second. Okay.
Yes, John.
Yeah.
Hello.
Okay,
yeah,
go
John.
ahead.
Hello.
Yes.
Good evening, Professor. Good evening, Professor. It's Rustam Beg. Hello.
Yes, we hear you.
Hello, hello.
Yeah, we hear
John,
you.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear everybody.
Somehow.
Oh, you can't see me? I don't know what happened there. Okay, go ahead with your question. Go ahead with your question.
Yeah, I can hear you now very well. Sorry.
Okay.
I can hear you completely clearly.
Okay, go ahead with your question.
Okay, thank you, Professor, for excellent presentation. Do you have how much case of the operation instability of fixation, maybe in migration of screws, any problem do you have? And how much the percentage these patients?
No, I couldn't get your question, but I can only answer that these operations are difficult operations. You have to learn them properly. You have to learn them very nicely. The C2 pedicle and C2 facet and C1 facet are the strongest bones of the whole body. The purchase of the screw in the C2 is better than any other purchase in the entire body. Occipital screws, vertebral body is like a sponge. Vertebral body, if you do from front, vertebral body screws are like a spongy bone. The facetal bone is the strongest bone. You must know that you are putting your screw in the strongest bone. The chances of screw migration and all those things are nil, completely zero. Okay?
Okay, thank you. And second question.
But you have to learn.
Okay, second question. What's the tactic if you injure of vertebral artery during the...
Yes. I am going to give you one lecture on handling of vertebral artery in one of my future lectures. How you handle vertebral artery injury. I have prepared one lecture for you in my subsequent lectures, okay?
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Next question, please. Or comment?
Yes, hello.
Go ahead from Morocco.
Thank you very much, Professor Goal, for this excellent lecture. Professor, what
you enjoy my lectures.
What do you think about endoscopic odontoidectomy, endonasal endoscopic odontoidectomy for irreductible lesions? What do you think about this?
See, endonasal approach for some tumors in the region may be good. But if you ask me about endoscopic odontoidectomy, I will say it is never necessary for instability related issues. Never. I don't recommend. As I mentioned to you, I was doing transoral odontoidectomy on a regular basis. On a very regular, this was my favorite operation, transoral surgery. I'm not saying transnasal or endoscope, I'm not saying. But I have completely abandoned. It is a historical operation in my department for last 20 years. Transoral surgery is not done. We have experts in my own department doing endoscopy and all. Endoscopy is very established in my own department. But I don't recommend odontoidectomy for decompression in any case. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Hello?
Yeah.
Go ahead, next comment or question.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Yes, yes, please.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much for this very interesting lecture, as usual, as we used to have with Professor Will. I just want to ask about one thing regarding this basilar invagination cases in which you open the facet and distract it. Do you measure how much this distraction before surgery? I mean, if we measure the distance of the basilar invagination on a CT basis, and then you distract according to this, or what exactly
I do not measure. What I do is, when there is basilar invagination, I introduce my osteotome. You saw my osteotome going and turn it.
Yes.
So as much as turning as possible, as much as I don't give too much pressure, as much as easily possible, then I introduce a lot of bone graft. I do not measure.
What's the size of the osteotome, sir, you use? The size of the osteotome, it differs.
It is different. So I change my size of osteotome depending on the situation. And then small osteotome, little bigger osteotome, whenever I feel that the pressure is not too little more than necessary, then I avoid. So it is, there is no preoperative measurement as such. And maybe I can, let me see if I can show you more basilar invagination cases in my next lectures.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, next comment or question?
Yes, Professor Goel, this is Abhilash from Tampa, Florida. Thank you. That was a fantastic presentation. I had a question about the Gardner well tongs. Do you place them directly over the EAC or slightly anterior to promote some
Slightly
lordosis?
anterior. Slightly anterior. I am not, you see, my aim of my traction is not to reduce the dislocation, not to, it is just to give traction to the head, stabilize the head in neutral position, keep the head away from the head holder in a floating position, keep the eyes and face away from the headrest. My aim of my traction is not to distract the facets, which I do intraoperatively. So it is basically to keep the head stable. And just above the eye, just above the ear, in a safe area here, just above in the line of mastoid process, maybe a little anterior. Avinash, I hope you enjoyed. Where are you? Where are you, Avinash? Which place?
I'm in Tampa, Florida, not too far away from John.
Yeah, 4 hours away. Okay, next question or comment? I'm sure there
So
are
John,
some. Go ahead.
Before they ask another question, I want to present tomorrow. Maybe even there is a question mark because I have some work tomorrow. But if I'm able to present tomorrow, I want to present. The title of my presentation will be a spinal revolution. I want to introduce a revolution in spine surgery. I want to introduce to you a revolution in cervical spondylosis surgery, surgery for spinal canal stenosis, surgery for lumbar canal stenosis, surgery for OPLL. I want to introduce a revolution, maybe tomorrow, if possible, otherwise, maybe on the subsequent day.
Oh, tomorrow will be fine. If you want to do that, just,
Let
yeah,
us
that'd
see.
be
I
fine.
want to do tomorrow. Yeah,
Okay.
let us see.
Okay, very good. Okay, let's continue. More questions, comments? Step up. Now's your chance.
Hello, sir.
Go ahead, Mohammed.
Can I ask you a question, sir?
Sure.
Yes, Mohammed.
Sir, everything is possible from posterior for basilar invagination, or is there any issue then we can do decompression from anterior still in your chapter?
Mohammed, yeah, Mohammed, one thing I will tell you, and you properly listen to what I'm saying. I have removed this word decompression from my, this decompression is no longer my word. So I don't do decompression at all. You have seen I don't do anterior decompression. I don't do decompression at all. So that you remember, Mohammed, okay? Second thing is all my operations are from behind. And my feeling is from behind, you can have a good hang of the facets, articulation, fixation, control of vertebral artery, and all these things are much better from behind. And as I mentioned to you, the muscles can be cut under vision. And these muscles, if you are coming from front and putting your instruments, the muscles will demolish the instruments in no time, in my view. So I don't do any operation. I used to do, I have shown you. I have shown anterior transoral plating. I have shown you tremendous number of transoral surgery. We used to do for 20 years this operation, anterior. Retropharyngeal, I used to do quite a number of cases, but now this anterior business does not come into my picture. Of course, if there is a tumor, chordoma, and things like that, then it is a different point of view.
Sir, when the in basilar invagination, when the facet joint is in sagittal plane, that means in vertical, so why do you put your bone graft then?
You have to open the facet articulation no matter whichever plane it is, whether it is vertical plane or whatever. So if it is possible, I will show you several cases in my subsequent presentation. But you introduce your osteotome, distract the facet, and you can reduce the, that you can realign the facet. And then you can introduce. There is no facet, no alignment where you cannot do. So that is the answer to your question. Okay, Mohammed, maybe I'll show you more cases to show you better, because I'm sure you are a young boy. and you will like to be convinced as to what I'm saying. So I will like to show you more of these cases. Okay, Mohammed?
Thank you.
And if you are very much interested, I welcome you to come and visit me. That will be the best for you, believe me, for you and for your career in this field. Okay, Mohammed?
So I have visited you, sir. I already visited you, sir.
Oh, really?
Thank you.
Okay,
Then you
good.
must have, oh, then you must have seen it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mohammed, okay.
Okay, more comments, questions?
Hello.
Go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, yes.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, I just want to know the technical difference between the par screw and pedicle screw, and which technique is superior.
See, par screw and pedicle screw. Pars is a
Yes,
very
sir.
small part of the pedicle. You see, lamina, I
Yes,
showed
sir.
you the pars. The pars,
Yes,
the
sir.
definition of pars is not very well defined in the literature, if you see.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Pars is
Yes.
that point which connects the pedicle to the lamina.
Yes, sir.
And that pars is a very small part. Actually, if you read my first article in the year 1994,
Yes,
in
sir.
the year 1994, I have mentioned par screw. And
Yes,
then
sir.
many people were asking me what is pars and all those things. And I then had to subsequently tell them, you know, I was not even knowing myself what is pars at that time. So
Yes, sir.
pars is a very small part of the connection between the lamina and the pedicle. So if it is those are very small screws you can put. But if you can put a screw right into the pedicle and then into the facet, that is the best form of fixation. And you have to learn that. If the vertebral artery comes in the picture and you are not able to do because of the vertebral artery, you can use par screw in that occasion. But it is you cannot introduce a very big screw in that case.
Yes. And the second question is whether it is always necessary to do laminectomy posterior decompression or not.
Oh my goodness, I have told you 500 times decompression is never done in my operation. Decompression is a historical word. Don't do ever decompression. I showed you multiple slides showing foramen magnum decompression is historical. Transoral decompression is historical. Decompression, you remove this word. Tomorrow I am going to show you a spinal surgery revolution. And in that revolution, I am going to show you that decompression word can be removed from your dictionary. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Goyle, for another beautiful presentation today. I'm Dunguga from Nigeria. Yes. Please, my question is the bone grafts that you use to fuse the joint, the articular joint. What's your preferred site of harvest of these bone grafts?
Yes. My bone graft, I always harvest from the iliac crest. And I break the bone, then I chop them into smaller pieces. And iliac crest is but I can see that you are in a very beautiful location in Kenya. I can see the tigers running and lions running.
Nigeria.
John, he's in better situation. You are seeing your view.
Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you.
Okay, more comments, questions?
Sir, good evening. My name is Parth and I'm studying in PGI MER Chandigarh. So Dr. Praveen Salunke is doing Atlantoaxial.
Yes. He's doing good job, I know.
Yes, sir. And he is my mentor and consultant. So I am just wanted to ask one doubt that sir usually does rod fixation with polyaxial screws, and you are doing with plate. So is there any difference or anything which is different?
No, you see, actually, basically, rods become a little bit easier. But what happens is, when you are putting the plate, suppose I will ask you, Dr. Parth, if you are tightening a screw on the wall, if your screw head is right on the wall, that is the stronger screw. If your screw head is away from the wall, that is not such a strong screw. You agree with that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So what I do is, you know, we had described in 1988 these kind of plates.
Yes,
Then
sir.
these plates were subsequently modified into polyaxial screws and then rod. And many people in the world are doing rod and plate and polyaxial screws. Many people in the world are doing.
Yes, sir.
And they are comfortable because, you know, they are comfortable with that. I also use sometimes rod, but my feeling is these plates, if you have seen this operation,
Yes,
the
sir. Yes, sir.
plates make the whole thing very solid and close. You see, if your rod, you can
Yes, sir.
imagine if your rod is away from the joint and if your rod is touching the joint, that
Yes, sir.
touching the joint thing is much more stronger. You understand what I'm saying? So I have
Yes,
been
sir.
using this plate on more occasions, but this is just a variation. There is nothing, no difference in the technique.
Yes, sir. Okay. Thank
Where
you,
are
sir.
you now at this time, Parth?
Sir, I am currently at home.
No.
At
Are you still in
staying at.
PGI?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I am currently in second year resident in PGI. I am here, and
Okay.
I am
Very good.
very
Very
much
good.
interested
Very good.
in this. Thank
Very
you,
good.
sir.
Very good. Okay, Parth.
Next question or comment?
Hello?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Morocco.
Excuse me, I have a second question.
Go ahead.
Professor,
have-
can you make some comment about patients who present Down syndrome with this kind of lesions?
Yes, Down syndrome are very common cause of atlantoaxial instability, Down syndrome. And when you have Down syndrome, atlantoaxial instability is common. Basilar invagination can be there, and there can be atlantoaxial instability. This is a common phenomena with Down syndrome. And you have to do a good fixation. The bones are a little bit osteoporotic in Down syndrome. And then you have to do a very solid fixation. And I have got several patients with Down syndrome where I have done fixation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next question, comment? Somebody has their hand up. Okay, let me ask you one from the text. Okay, Dr. Goel? Can you hear me, Dr. Goel?
Yes, yes.
Okay, Dr. Abhinav asks, Professor, what to do in a patient with CV tuberculosis with instability and progressive neurological deficit? Which is the ideal stabilization?
Yeah, tuberculosis is a completely different subject. Tuberculosis is a different chapter and different lecture. But tuberculosis, what the advantage is in tuberculosis, that tuberculosis is a unilateral involvement. It involves the facet on one side early in the operation. It rarely involves both the facets. So to stabilize, you can do one side solid fixation. This will depend on the various kinds of tuberculosis, various stages of tuberculosis. Tuberculosis is a different subject, actually. But I have written one paper on tuberculosis. You will like to probably read that, okay?
Okay, we'll just move on. Oh, next question or comment. A lot of residents in the room. I'm sure there are questions.
Hello.
Go ahead, Samsul.
Yes,
Yes,
thank you,
Samsul,
thank
yes.
you, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Excellent presentations. I would like to know the appropriate length for C1
Yes,
and C2.
yes.
How will you measure? And next question is, how about bicortical purchase? And if a bicortical purchase is achieved, then how length you will allow in the prevertebral space? Thank you, sir.
Yes, yes, that is a very nice question. You see, as I was mentioning, the facet of C1 is the strongest bone of the body. Facet of C2 is the strongest bone of the body. And the entire bone is like a cortical bone. It is not a cancellous bone. Entire bone is like a cortex. So there is no question
Yes,
of
sir.
bicortical. It is the whole thing is cortical. So you introduce your screw. Normally the dimension, anterior-posterior dimension of the facet of atlas is about 12, 13 millimeter or 15 millimeter. And you introduce
sir.
your screw, total screw length will be 24, 26 millimeter. It may go in front of the facet. There is no problem. You see, when the screw goes anterior to the facet, it
Yes,
takes
sir.
the soft tissue with it. It will never pierce the soft tissue in front of the facet. There was one article written that you can damage the internal carotid artery which lies in front of the facet of atlas. Believe me, it will never happen. It will never happen. You introduce a big long screw and let it hold the C1 facet very strongly. Okay?
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Samsul, okay.
Very good. Next question, comment?
Thank you.
Hello.
Go ahead.
I wanted to ask, thank you very much, Professor Arthur Gohel. I've heard much about you and great work you're doing. I'm calling from Nigeria.
Thank you.
I'm calling from Nigeria. Yes, a simple question I wanted to ask. Is there a paradigm shift from migrating, from anterior approach to completely posterior approach? And two, what is against decompression that have made you to abandon decompressing the spine?
So this, as I mentioned to you, maybe tomorrow or maybe in a subsequent lecture, I don't do decompression, okay? And my concept as to why I don't do decompression, I have shown you in my slides. I don't like foramen magnum decompression. I don't like decompression. I never remove bone. Now, why I don't remove bone, there are several articles of mine. You can go through my articles. And when I present to you my spinal revolution, I will give you my further concepts on this subject. As regards anterior and posterior surgery, as I mentioned, anterior transoral surgery, retropharyngeal surgery was a very common surgery in my own personal. Now I'm working in neurosurgery for 38 years or 39 years. And in my lifetime, I was doing transoral surgery for at least 15 years and retropharyngeal surgery for several years. As I have matured into this business of this surgery, I'm not convinced. I'm 100% convinced that you have to learn this technique of posterior fixation. You have to learn to operate and open the joint. You have to learn and operate and introduce bone graft in the joint. You have to learn and introduce screws directly into the facets. If you do not learn and you do any other kind of suboptimal fixation, you're going to harm the person. These operations are not easy operations. These operations are not safe operations. If you create a complication, and if your understanding is less than 100%, you can create a tremendous complication in these operations. And if you create a complication, the patient will never leave you, and patient will be demolished in his life. So I will suggest, you please read about it, understand it more elaborately. And if you are asking me, I don't do transoral anterior surgery at all, and decompression completely no. Okay.
Okay, more comments, questions? I know Najer has questions.
Hello.
There you are.
Oh, yeah.
Not from Nigeria. I'm Dr. Najjar from Syria.
Yes.
I'm just waiting for the end of the discussion. Wow, most of friends asking about the decompression, and Professor Ottergold did not do any decompression. What is this dilemma? In all MRI and all instability, we will find the mass hypertrophy of the ligaments, which is very big mass, abnormal mass compressing on the neural elements. So when you do the fixation, these elements will be shrinking by time. And this is so how much time it takes and why all the people think about decompression and you do it, you do not do it. This is a philosophy of the canceling of the movement, of the abnormal movement. But how can we consider on this for how long time it takes to resolve this abnormal masses?
Okay, so what I'll do is I will give a special lecture on decompression. Okay, and that will come in my lecture on spinal revolution. And you be ready, okay? In Syria, you be completely, you get your hair also properly in alignment, and your bones I will align myself, and then we will align the whole thing, and I will not, you completely decompress yourself before you attend my lecture. And then we will do it. Next time I am giving a lecture on decompression. Decompression will be my title. Okay? Okay. My title will not be decompression. My title will be no decompression.
No decompression.
Okay,
but this is,
okay,
I think, my question is: this a theory? Is the right thing that this abnormal mass was resolved by time?
We will see. We will see tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next comment. Rahul, you have a comment? Rahul Kumar. Let me unmute you. Go ahead, Rahul. You have your hand up and you have the floor. That's not. It'll take a while before people learn this tech and get comfortable with it. Dung, do you have any more questions or comments?
Okay, John, what we'll do is let them write to me. So we will close this now, okay?
Okay, very good. Okay, doctor. So we'll see you tomorrow.
Yes, I will send you my title. I will going to present on revolution and decompression and make my Syrian friend happy. And let us see how we can do it, okay?
Okay, very good.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Take care. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, Professor.
Everybody. Thank everybody for coming.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
Very good. Very good. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Well, I just want to say there's another conference. I'm going to show you. This is like a commercial. Okay, let me get here.
John, can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Are you a neurosurgeon or just
No,
general
just a regular doctor that likes the internet.
Yes, I noticed that because you did not ask any question during all the lectures.
No, because, well, I could. Sometimes I do when there's nobody there. But when there's people, when there's people there, I don't have to. You know.
So I doubt that you are not neurosurgeon. What's the idea that to make this for just neurosurgery?
Well, I was just led that way by fate, I think. I just met some people that were into it. So I helped develop the idea with them, with Ipe. I met Ipe, and so that's where we went from there. So
great.
So let me just show you. Can you see this?
Thank you.
We're having a lecture. Okay, and this is in a couple of hours. It's 10:30 here. It's at 2 o'clock. In 2.5 hours, Dr. Mansour Farogi from London is going to be lecturing on management of colloid cysts and surgical tips. Okay,
great,
there's the
great.
link. There's the link there. I'm gonna put it. I'm gonna put it in the chat box for you guys if you want to go.
Yeah, please.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay.
John, I would want to ask that one thing.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me get off this here and put this to all. Everyone's familiar with the chat, right? Okay. There's a. There's the link. It's 7 o'clock London, 2 o'clock my time, which is Eastern time, New York. Does everybody see that link?
Yes,
Yes,
yes, we can see it.
Yes, yes,
Clear,
yes.
clear.
Yeah, come to that lecture. It's the same thing, interact.
2 hours and a half from now. Okay, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay. Okay.
okay,
Hope
one
I
sec-
see
one
you
more thing,
guys
John,
there.
please.
Hope we
Okay,
guys.
sir.
Hope
Bye.
I get to know all you guys. Okay.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Dr. John, bye-bye.